I'm going to welcome everybody to today's Ask the Expert, Startup Grind, Maryland. You can see from the slides in the background flipping through that that's who we are. That's what we do. That's our mission. And that's our motto and so forth. And Jeffrey, is you heard earlier, is our guest today. He's our guest expert. His background is marketing in so many great directions. So since it's an Ask the Expert, what we'll be asking you to do is just anything that occurs to you that you want to find out about, blurt it out, because we're the size of group that can run without the mutes, as it says on our slides. So if you want to unmute and say something, feel free. If you want to mute, feel free. And we'll get right into it. And Jeff explained to me a little earlier that he was going to allow you guys to direct him as to what's going to make this meeting more valuable than we even imagined when we started it. So I turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Patrick. Much appreciated. Welcome, everybody. Everybody's kind of gone around a little bit, but what I want to do to kick this off, and I'm going to go, and I have some slides I will present, although I do want to try and keep us as full screen as we can and not in little boxes so that we can somewhat connect with each other on this call. I want to see where you guys are, what your needs are from a marketing perspective. And again, it could be, hey, I'm so early on, I don't know anything, or it could be I've tried everything and I'm pulling my hair out, or so I want to know where you guys are, because I have kind of the whole gamut of start to finish of kind of how to build the marketing funnel, how to think about all this stuff. It's a lot of stuff. I've really pared it down to make it as streamlined as possible, but I don't want to waste too much time on things that aren't interesting to you. And like Patrick said, at any point, I'm not going to sit here and talk for the next 40 minutes. I want this to be interactive. I want to hear what your needs are, what your questions are, of course, from the Ask the Expert side of things. But even more than that, as we're talking, if there's things that you have done that are maybe different, or things that you have done have worked really well, let's make this, because the whole point of this is a community, and it's all about connections. And whether, we were talking about this a little bit before for everybody who was on and could hear, especially when we're doing virtual, it's hard to make these connections. It's not always a connection of, I need this service and you can provide it to me. Sometimes it's a connection of, hey, I had this idea. Has anybody else tried it? Has anybody else had luck with this? Or do you know somebody and, introduce me to somebody? So there's a lot of different ways to do the connections. And I think, just having the conversations and not, I don't want this to be a webinar. And really, this is kind of how we're trying to get this series to go, where it's more interactive and not just, hey, turn off your camera, sit back and check your emails while I sit here and yammer on for the next 40 minutes, because that's not beneficial to anybody. So let's do kind of a quick around the horn, if you guys don't mind. I know most of you have been on a bunch of these calls before. Some of you haven't. I haven't been on all of them. So love to hear kind of who everybody is, make sure everybody else knows who's on here, so that, hey, maybe this little group here is the connection, or maybe it's just the information. So I'll put us under the spotlight. I'll start off, since I'm going to be doing a lot of this stuff. So I'm Jeff Freedman. I have been in marketing and automation and communications for the past 30 years. I've worked for enterprise level companies for the past 10 years or so. I've really been focused more on startups and mid-market companies, just trying to get their systems down. One of the biggest things that I look at, and when I come to the perspective, and this is what I'll talk about a lot, is it's not necessarily what you're saying, it's what the customer is receiving, your prospective audience is actually perceiving you do, and what they understand that you do. And then how do you follow up with them once they raise their hand and say, I'm interested? So that's what I'm going to talk about a lot today. I've been involved with Startup Grind since 2016 as a Baltimore chapter director, and now part of the new Startup Grind Maryland director team. So that's my background. I'm going to pass it off to Patrick. Why don't you give us just a quick rundown of you? We'll get our team in there, and then we'll get all of everybody else and get to it.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Well, I write software. That's my story. And I wrote software in the 80s, and I got lucky in the 90s. And with that software, I was able to build a company that still has product in the market today. I actually sold that company around 2009 or 10 or something in that range. It took a while to get it off of me. But since then, I ended up starting another one by writing some more software and finding that it sold. People liked it and it did what they wanted. My specialty has been enterprise-wide software, so I write for dozens of people all on their own machines, looking at screens coming from the main brain so that they all stay coordinated and do the vertical tasks they have to do for the vertical market that they're in to get that product out. So I've been with Startup Grind now for, when was that, Chris? 2018 or something?
2017.
Yes, 2017. And I continue today to work with startups, work with clients in the IT area, in the enterprise-wide software area. And like a lot of guys in my background, I'm now digging deep into AI and doing a project of training a major AI system by giving it complex computer problems to solve and see how well it can write software. And if I can get it to write software better than I have, then I've done my job. So that's what I'm up to.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick.
Cool.
Chris, your
Yeah,
10.
I'll go next. My name is Chris Haug, and I am the managing director of Startup Grind Maryland. Jeff and I started our chapters separately back in 2000, late 2016, early 2017. And we have been working closely together ever since. And when COVID hit, we made the decision to combine forces and have one Maryland statewide resource as opposed to three smaller resources. A little bit about me. I currently serve as a professor of management, leadership, and communication at the University of Maryland. I serve as an entrepreneur in residence at BW Tech at UMBC, which is their large technology and research center, where we help companies and researchers and professors statewide bring their technology out of the lab and into the market. And then my third major focus is obviously Startup Grind Maryland. I've done 3 of my own startups. I've been involved in six additional as some kind of a founding team member. And I do a lot of mentoring and advising with organizations such as Techstars, Founder Institute, Startup Grind, and several of the local and regional. So I have been involved in this industry in some fashion for about the last 40 years. So that's a little bit about me.
Chris has some experience. Right now, I'm going to toss it over to everybody else. When you tell us who you are, if you don't mind, I'd love to know kind of what you're working on right now and what your level of marketing needs are. And I say that, are you doing any marketing for that? Have you done marketing in the past? I want to make sure kind of when we talk into the marketing side of things, I'm catering a little bit more towards what you guys need. So Emily, I'm going to let you get us going and then we'll go around to the rest of the guys.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Emily Goldstein. First and foremost, I'm a graphic designer. I have a company called M Design. It's mdesignbaltimore.com if you're really bored one day and you want to look at my work. Jeffrey and I know each other. We've worked for a mutual client. So I've had my business for 22 years, but during part of that business, one of my clients, a dentist, who hired me to brand his dental practice like 50 years ago, he invented a product and he called me and asked me if I would be willing to join his team and do all the branding, all the graphic design, anything visual, and in exchange for 3% of the company. And it's now been 5 years. I didn't, I had hopeful eyes and I just thought, Under Armour's going to buy us and this is my nest egg right here. And of course it hasn't happened that way. And I don't want to bore everyone, but just to tell you what the product is, if you want to go on your own time to thermopact.com, THERMOPACT.com. This is it's an athletic mouth guard for sports. Yes, there are lots of them. Ours is better because it was invented by a dentist who's also an athlete. But on top of that, ours will change color from black to red when the oral temperature of the athlete hits about 102, which is where there could potentially be danger. There may not, but it's enough danger to check that person. And this was invented because of the death of Jordan McNair, who died on the Maryland football field because people were not aware of the seriousness of heat illness or injury. So again, you imagine a girls' lacrosse practice in Baltimore, it's 94 degrees. The coach says, let's come over and have a mouth guard check. Everyone takes out their mouth guards, and 3 of the 20 have a red mouth guard. Just get yourself checked out. Maybe we are actually saving a life. If you're fine, and you'll come back. Maybe the kids or the athletes start to see it like, hey, Bob, your thing is red. Go off. I was an athlete, and I'll tell you, I would never say to my coach, I'm hot. Can you take me out? Never. So,
But if somebody else sees it, that's great. Emma, can you put the name of that website in the chat so everybody, if they do want to take a look at it, and put your stuff in there too. Everybody put your stuff in the chat if you're up for it. That way,
sure.
if somebody does like what you say, they can follow up with you.
Sure.
See, I'm gonna bounce it to you next, since you've been patiently waiting to join in the conversation. Again, appreciate you guys coming out. Yeah, I know you've been on a couple of these calls. Just give us kind of a quick overview of who you are, if there's a company you're kind of looking at some marketing advice for, and where you are with marketing.
Sure, it's my pleasure. So my name is Sina Faridimer. I'm founder and CEO of Eneretics. I'm based in Potomac, Maryland. I started the company last year. The product that I'm working on is an AI software platform that would help commercial and industrial facilities to manage and optimize their energy consumption. I'm already part of the Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator, the startup arm of MCEC, and I'm an AI scientist, and I'm also teaching part-time at George Mason University. And I'm currently working on my prototype, very early stage. And the reason that I'm here is that I'm continuously working on refining my marketing messages. I'm not actively doing marketing, but definitely I need to plan for that for the next couple of years. And that's why I'm here, to learn, basically.
Perfect. Well, hopefully you're at the right spot. Welcome aboard.
Thank
Stephanie, break it down for us. Stephanie, can you share your?
Oh, okay.
That was
Yeah,
you. Sorry.
I don't know. You're talking to me.
Point,
Sorry.
Stephanie.
I apologize. So yes, my name is Stephanie Perrault. I run a marketing agency. We're also established in France and in Morocco. And right now I'm working on a project that really is super important for me, and it's from the heart. It's to support women founders in social impact, and it's a 12-month program that we are launching in March. And we are doing a documentary about it. And the goal is to create community to support their social impact startup.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So are you doing any marketing for that? Or are you just kind of looking generally for some marketing strategy, or you're just here to kind of see what's going on with the startup grind community?
So I'm here to learn, and but for the Weavers, I'm doing everything because it's my initiative. I have some people on board that are helping me. We are raising money right now and putting the production team together. So
hopefully the automation section of this could be really helpful for you as well. So hopefully that
yeah,
would be learning. And then we're going to come around to Sam, since he's finished his
look forward
breakfast.
to it.
Stephanie, welcome, Sam. We appreciate you joining us on camera as well, and hopefully everybody gets something out of it. So Sam, I know you gave us a quick breakdown. This is your third company you were mentioning. And tell us a little bit about what's going on with that, and then we'll jump into our marketing information.
Absolutely. First of all, bonjour Stéphanie, comment ça va?
Bonjour, merci, ça va bien.
Bon, tu viens de France?
Yes,
Belgique?
the real French, not
Ah
the...
oui, je comprends. Okay, so for everybody who is wondering, I'm actually a Haitian immigrant, and came to the United States when I was about a year and a half old. I know that's got nothing to do with the subject we're talking about now, but when I saw her name, Perrault, and then started hearing her speak, I went, oh no, I cannot just go on without saying bonjour, Stéphanie. You know what I mean? So anyway, bonjour. Yes, so for me, at this point, I have been in sales um, and business development for 36 years. So I started out in car sales, and I was working for other companies. And I found that I'd been able to generate quite a bit of revenue. And I consider the type of sales I do non-transactional and very consultative. And I thought, you know what? Why am I living out somebody else's vision, right?
Mhm.
Why not do this for myself? So the firm that I have now formed, which is after my own name, the St. Fard Group, LLC. My name is Sam St. Fard, ST-capital Phard, or in French, Saint Fard. Stephanie gets that. Saint Fard or St. Fard, the St. Fard Group, LLC. What I am trying to form, Jeffrey, is a full-blown consultancy where we're going to actually begin with the education of teenagers on the centralized financial system, the decentralized financial system, and then teach them how to actually vision cast, right? To begin to think in the way that we think, um, in an entrepreneurial way, so that they aren't necessarily followers, although there's nothing wrong with that, but to become the leaders. Because right now, not only are we going into the AI future, but it also appears as if the decentralized finance space, blockchain, all that, is having a real impact on the future. And of course, the unbanked nations, right, the emerging market economies, are beginning to seem to be able to, with just their cell phones, access uh, um, economic opportunity. So as these things are beginning to unfold, and AI and all these other things, and then being able to understand the centralized banking system, Dow, Wall Street, all those things, I'm thinking I didn't learn any of that when I was in high school. And so what my partners and I are considering, and any of you, as it relates to marketing and figuring this out, and we need funding as well, is okay, what schools do we partner with? Um, I'm thinking bringing it into a junior, like a 16-year-old and up, for like the last 2 years of their schooling, and then transition that to where they can go to a university that can kind of get that jump start going in. So that's really what this project is about. Not even a project, really, our firm wants to really now focus on. We want to focus on the teenagers, kind of give them that jump start going into, um, and then on the back end of that, be able to invest in their projects or invest in their company or in their invention, do either an angel investment, depending on if it works that way, or an equity uh, investment, hold it for a period of time, and then they can buy themselves out. And we have an exit strategy. So that's kind of where it's beginning. And then it'll go beyond that. I mean, we've got some pretty brilliant guys on our team, but that's it. That's what we're trying to do.
No, that, I mean, that sounds incredible. And again, that really kind of aligns with a lot of the stuff that we do with Startup Grind, which is, obviously you're focusing more on teenagers, but as future business owners, how do you support them in different facets of what they need? And financial stability is a huge part of that. You ask any startup, and again, you basically hit the nail on the head with startups, and I know you know this, but I don't want to do this for somebody else. I want to do this for myself. That's kind of the startup mantra. So it sounds like you guys all have some different needs for marketing, but again, they all kind of follow the same philosophy of how do I take my idea, how do I take my product and get at least the awareness of it into my audience. You know, how do I get it out to them? How do I get them to understand what it is that I provide? And then how do I make sure that, you know, I'm following up with them? I'm continuously talking to them. So I'm gonna, now that we're pretty far into today, I'm gonna start my quick presentation again. I'm not gonna dive too deep into this. Let me bring it up. Stand by. It is coming up, and I'm gonna share my screen so you guys can see it. Hopefully this doesn't freeze everything up. Okay, there we go. Let me see where that just went. There it is. Sorry, my computer's acting up. That's what happens when it is time to present. Okay. Showing again, so let's hope it pulls up. What are you guys able to see? There we go. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of go through this relatively quickly, but I want to kind of get more interactive. So as we go through it, I'm going to probably stop and ask you guys questions and have you guys jump in. But again, when we're looking at the basics, and what I'm going to do is kind of go through, you know, as we are, and I'm not going to read all this to you, but as you go through it, you know, it's really a certain order. And I know a couple of you had mentioned, you know, getting that messaging down. How do we talk about it? And again, at the end of the day, if you're trying to connect with your audience, you really need to start with the basics of who you are and what you offer. And a lot of times that seems like it's so simple or so stupid, but you know, a lot of companies I talk to and they're talking about, you know, hey, we do this and we do this. I'm like, that's not actually what people care about. So it's not necessarily, you know, thinking about what you're selling. It's, you know, for yourself. Think about, you know, if you were going to define it, what is it? Who's it for? What does it do? I know Emily did a really good job of kind of explaining that with the mouth guard of you know, it is a mouth guard for athletes. It's designed so that we can tell that they're overheating without them raising their hand and saying I'm overheating, because they don't know, they don't realize it. They need to wear a mouth guard, so we're not adding anything to the equation. We're just making it more beneficial. You know, again, so it's kind of going through that. So think about, you know, what it is that you have. And then again, what makes it different, you know, and I'm going to come back to the mouth guard because that's a low hanging fruit and really easy to use as an example. But the competitor mouth guards don't tell you if they're having a health issue. They're literally just there to protect your mouth, which is great and very important, but there's other factors in there. So of course, that unique selling the unique value proposition for that one is super easy. It is the fact that it will tell you if you're about to have a heat related issue. And the measurable benefits are really easy, less death. That's a really great benefit to be able to put out there. Now, again, you got to paint that picture a little bit differently, but as you're writing this up on the whiteboard, less death can be written up there because that is a huge benefit. And then you figure out how do you finesse it. But again, it starts with the basics. What do you offer and what do you offer different from the competition? That really helps you set yourself apart. We're jumping through here. Come on. Okay. So then you need to figure out who you are, you know. So now we know what it is that we have, but who are you? You know, what is your company's identity? Because again, as you're telling that story of what it is that you have to sell, you need to make sure that why do they trust you? Why are you the company? You know, so you're thinking about this kind of from the two levels of who are you and what do you do? How do you want to get that message out there? You know, so you know, if we jump to Sam, I'm going to jump to you real quick. You know, if you were thinking about, you know, this company and the mission that you have, you know, you could easily spell it. And you kind of went through a lot of this stuff too of, you know, your mission is to educate teens on financial responsibility and on the way the new markets are working. You know, the problem that you solve is that they don't understand that. You know, I know a couple of us mentioned we didn't learn that, you know, so that's the problem that you're solving in theory. If we're going to just spell it out, is that they don't understand this stuff. They need to if they want to become successful. And you exist because nobody else there is doing this. You know, that's really why you exist. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just kind of pulling in, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a conversation when I'm helping companies with this. I'll have a conversation, and this will be kind of what we try and pull out of it, rather than giving you a you know, a questionnaire and saying, hey, fill out these answers. Now, of course, that works too, but it's much better when you get it in conversation. So again, then when you're thinking about your brand personality, and thinking about what it is you have to offer. So Sina, this may be, you know, more along, you know, just again, trying to bounce through everybody and make sure, but, you know, because it sounds like what you're working on is much more technical. if I'm not mistaken. So you probably want to come up as more innovative and trustworthy as opposed to Emily, because you're talking to athletes. The fun part of it may want to come in there a little bit more. And definitely, Sam, when you're talking about it, if we're talking to teens, we want to make sure that we have trustworthy and fun when we're talking about finances and teens. And Stephanie, when we're talking to, again, if we were going to do this for the female founders, it's really, that trustworthy and professional. But again, you want to make sure this is always your personality too. Remember, if you're a startup and this is your company, put your own personality in there too, because as you talk to people, as you have these conversations, it's going to be a lot easier to pull that through. Again, thinking about the values you uphold, again, none of this needs to be set in stone, but in the back of your mind, you want to make sure you kind of have some of that stuff in there. This thing is really sensitive today. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So once you've kind of figured out those basics, who are we? Why are we here? Why do people care about us? What are we selling? What makes us different? Then it's coming up with, how do you put that out there? How do you define who you are and what you offer? And again, we're going to take all that stuff we put together and we're going to explain it, but we're not going to explain it complicated. You want to make sure it's really clear and really simple, because again, this isn't the ultimate message you're going to put out there. This is really the guideline for you to understand, how do I write my messaging? So if you make this super complicated and all these high, big, fancy words, and then you look at it, you're like, well, I don't really know what I mean by that, then you've defeated the whole purpose. You got to keep it really simple. If you want to make it fancy for a presentation or a deck, you absolutely can, but this is your blueprint. So you don't need to make it fancy because you're only impressing yourself. And then, when you think about who you're going to be talking to, and who it is that you're going to be matching with, and we'll get into a little bit of that, you always need to be thinking about the big question. What's in it for them? Because that's what they're thinking. What's in it for me? So you could be thinking, Emily, I'm going to use you as an example again. This mouth guard is going to be great because it'll provide these health flags a lot quicker, and we'll know things where they happen. But for the athlete, and Emily, you kind of hit the nail on the head. What's in it for them is that they are never going to show the weakness and say, I'm hot, coach. I don't feel good, coach. They're going to keep pushing it. So what's in it for them is another thing that can save their lives without them having to be on their responsibility. That's the big benefit to them, is that someone else will be able to see this. They don't have to, admit weakness or whatever it is. So again, what you want to do is kind of write this little sentence here. And again, this is your blueprint. This is for you on the inside. So, we are, what was the name of the company, Emily?
Thermopact.
We are Thermopact, a health providing mouth guard, or
Actually, it's Thermopact Mouth Shield.
Okay, so it's nice, short, and condensed, which is good. We like that. It really flows off the tongue.
I didn't help name it. They didn't put me in that part.
But again, if you have a sentence like this that really spells it out, we are Thermopac mouth guard. We create mouth guards that can also sense overheating, dedicated to saving lives. We offer these, specialized mouth guards. Again, this is a little bit repetitive here, but they are designed to make sure that athletes don't get ill from overheating. Our unique approach, with a temperature sensing mouth guard, sets us different from the competition. Again, having that clear sentence that really explains who you are and what you're doing. Again, a lot of you may be past this point. A lot of this may be repetitive. Step in at any point if you have questions. But that's really what you do there. And again, the goal here too is to not have this set in stone, because things change. So, maybe your product changes, maybe your audience changes, maybe what you're doing, you learn. So that's kind of the notes at the bottom are making sure that, you don't set it and forget it, that you're always kind of going back to this, because this is kind of your guideline as you're doing all your messaging. And then again, remember, not every what's in it for me is going to be the same. So, Stephanie, if we're talking to a founder who, has really been very successful, female founder that's been really successful, then what's in it for her isn't necessarily the empowerment and the support that she needs. Maybe it's the accolades. Maybe it's the fact that it gives her a platform to help other women. Whereas, other female founders who feel like they're, not getting equal pay, not getting equal, people aren't taking them as seriously, or whatever their pain points are, what's in it for them from the group is a lot different, because what they're looking for is they're looking for that lift up. They're looking for that support. So again, if you're going to go out and market directly to audiences that you can segment out, make sure that you're not giving the same message to everybody because the benefits are different. So again, now we're talking, and that's the segue. So I'm going to pause right here. You know, does all that seem like something that you've done, something that would be helpful to you? Do you have any, you know, have you tried this in the past and it's too complicated? You know, does anybody have any feedback at this point before we kind of jump into the audiences? I don't feel like you have to. So jump in at any time. You can cut me off. I'll keep going.
I'll jump on the soapbox for 1 second just to say, and Jeffrey, you can roll your eyes, that coming up with this messaging is, of course, important. It needs to be researched and vetted, and once you get all that, but how you say it eventually will become visual, and that matters. So even if you've got the perfect words, you know, you need professional graphic design to make sure that the typography and the spacing and just the visual image, even if you're just squinting at whatever we're looking at, is representative of the concept that you're trying to get across. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no. I get the very
Passionate.
point.
I'm
Blah, blah, blah or
passionate.
not, that's exactly right, Emily, what you just said. The color, the
Hey.
font, the shape, anything and everything about every pixel on that screen.
Yep.
Really,
Or a
that
piece of
comes
paper or a trade
back
show
to-
booth or whatever.
And that comes back to this, your company's identity. You know, are you fun? Are you trustworthy? All of that is going to go into painting that story because, like Emily said, it's not necessarily just the words that you're reading, but it's how it's being presented to you. And you know, when we talk about branding, once we get into messaging and repetition and automation, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that you have a clear brand. Whenever people see those colors, when people see that logo, they don't need to read all the other stuff. If you see a Nike swoosh, if you see, you know, the Coca-Cola logo, you know exactly what is being peddled. Now, your companies are probably not going to be that big. So you have a much bigger challenge to get that out there. But people don't need to memorize who you are. They just need to see it over and over again and make sure that when we're talking about making yourself stand out, that is a great way to do it. So really what we're doing here is kind of creating that blueprint to create the messaging, to create the look and feel. And then we'll also talk about kind of getting it out there. How do you do that? So let me jump back in here. So
Jeffrey,
again, I'm not gonna dive too much into this. Anybody else, please feel free to.
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, cool. So Jeffrey, here's my thing. And it is a question, right? I've built my entire career on face-to-face interaction, right? The pandemic could not have come at a worse time for me ever. Because these meetings are fantastic, like this one right here, because I'm not trying to earn anything from you guys, right? And I'm gleaning information, valuable information that I can now take and use to my benefit, right? To make me a better, I'm not even going to call myself an entrepreneur. I think we all are salespeople when it's all said and done in one way, shape, form, or another. However, as I'm listening to you, what I'm trying to figure out is how will marketing get me in front of, and I'm not going to even say the decision maker, how will it get me in front of someone that I need to win their trust? Because it is all about, in my opinion, building those long-term relationships that may start off as prospect salesperson, but eventually, I mean, it's been my experience with literally dozens upon dozens of folks that are now friends of mine for decades, some of these people, right? So how do I leverage my marketing into getting in front of these folks? And then, I mean, once I'm in front of them, everything else you're saying, as far as my personality, as far as being able to win their trust, as far as them looking at me and going, oh, this he's down, he's cool, yeah. So
No,
what's your advice?
Well, and again, so when we're looking at marketing and you know, what you're talking about is part of where we're going to be going. There's two things that can happen with marketing. One is you're selling a product that can kind of sell itself, where it's self-serve, where your whole marketing never really involves a salesperson. You can take them all the way down the funnel, drop them into a website, they can go and make the purchase. Nobody's involved. Most of the times when we're talking to startups, unless, you know, the ThermoGuard probably could do it, but most of the time you're going to have more of a sales cycle within there too, because most of the time we're talking to a lot of our startups, and this is not set in stone, but a lot of them are service-based. So we're selling ourselves, we're selling our personalities. So at some point, to your point, Sam, you are going to need to get involved. And the whole point of this process is teeing it up for you where you're not sitting there wasting your time on all the no's. You know, are you still going to get rejections? Absolutely. That's all part of sales. You leaving us, Emily?
No,
Oh,
no,
oh,
Paul, I
okay.
want to say something.
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I
No,
just,
no, please.
again, you know, I don't know how to say this, but what I always say to my clients is somewhere in the business process, something needs to become visual. So if Sam, you're going to go sit in front of people, you're going to meet people, you're going to leave them a card, show them a PowerPoint, whatever. I'll give my little speech and then I'll be quiet. You
don't need to be quiet.
I know, I'm tired of hearing myself say this.
No, you're
When
giving
you-
us valuable information. Thank you.
Okay. Well, when you throw a rock in the water and the concentric circles go out, that rock is your, I'll call it identity. It's logo. It's the reason I'm calling it identity is sometimes that identity is just a word like Gap or Banana Republic. Sometimes it's a word with a symbol, in which case it's Nike and a swoosh. Whatever that identity is, though, whatever it stands for, whatever colors and feeling it's evoking, then it goes out. So the next, in the old days, it was letterhead, envelope, business card. Then it was your website, then your trade show booth, then the lobby of your office. But if the rock sucks, forget about it. And meeting trust, like I was just thinking about, I'm still always trying to get more clients. I'm self-employed, so that's always what I'm doing. And I was about to write to someone who has a terrible logo, and I was going to show them 3 logos, but I was going to show them before and after. I've got a pharmaceutical company. This is what they came to me with. This is what I designed. I have an accountant, same thing. It's so powerful, but I can't quite get it. And I don't want to bore this person. I also don't want to be offensive to him, but people, especially in this day and age, you have like 3 seconds. So if you show someone some shitty thing that looks like a DIY, like my nephew did it, or something I designed, you'll win their trust. And I know that sounds arrogant.
No, I mean,
No, what? No.
I'm freaking out because I think AI is starting to put me out of business. And in 22 years of being very successful on my own, because of my talent and my personality and the human element, things are changing now. And my business, and I'm not talking about Thermopact, I'm talking about M Design. I need to figure something out because it's very scary.
well, and
But
here's the, you know,
I do believe that design, it is never going to change that you need good design. It's just whether I'm doing it or you're going to type it into Chat GPT. Thank you for listening.
no, and what we're talking about here again is building that foundation so that when the design happens, you know what direction to get. To your point of you have 3 seconds to get in front of somebody, you know, that's really where a lot of the automation comes in, because you need to get in front of them over and over again to even get that 3 seconds. Now, making a bad first impression, that's a whole nother story. And obviously you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward right from the start. As far as AI is concerned, you know, while yes, I think AI is a very powerful tool, you know, I don't think, and again, I could be wrong, and it really depends on the level that you want to get involved, because sure, at some level, you could just let AI do it. But it really depends if you want to actually have it done using a strategy, using a plan, and actually helping you create that plan. You're not going to be able to do all that from AI. AI can maybe crank something out. Now, sure, at some level, maybe it can, but I don't think most people are skilled enough with AI, are going to spend enough for the level of AI that you need and even know the tools to use create that. So whatever they would create on AI, yours is going to look better, Emily, because even if AI is really good, the person that's putting all the inputs in aren't going to know what they're doing because they don't have the strategy in place to do it. And again, that's really where, looking at the bigger strategy comes in. Let me see if I can pull up my presentation again. It may have disappeared. Is it this one? Yes. If you guys see something weird, let me know. What are you guys seeing now? Are you seeing?
Black line.
Black line.
Emily, if I could just chime in real quickly, and that is,
Yes.
I certainly can understand the immediate reaction of, oh, I'm going to be put out of business. But my view is, as Jeff said, AI is nothing but a tool. AI is going to be a productivity tool. It may be an idea generation tool, but let's face it, we are the greatest supercomputers in the world. AI is going to be but a tool. It's not going to replace the nuances, the skill sets, the experience, the judgment, and the human interaction that we can only provide to other clients. It's not as if an AI system is going to go out, contact the client. Everything is done in AI. AI is going to communicate with the client, and then the client's going to pay AI. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, it can be scary, but just remember, you are the greatest supercomputer in the world. Only you can sell the nuances. Only you can translate what this means to the customer.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And, I'm trying to take a big look down at what's happening. It's hard to do that when you're in it. And it's only you. I don't have a partner who I can be like, what are we going to do about this?
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I love this group. But I was trying to console myself by saying, look, maybe the phone isn't ringing as much right now because people don't know what you just said, Chris. So people still think it can, and they don't want to pay me, 25 grand to do their identity set because they're like, why should I pay her? I have this and my nephew knows how to use it. So maybe if I wait this out, I'll get as busy as I used to be. It's just weird and it's hard and it's scary, and I'm passionate about what I do, so I am defensive that a machine's going to do it. But you are right, Chris. I need to embrace it, and I'm still a little stuck in the mud. I'm working on it.
No, no.
Unstick. Unstick. But now, Stephanie, you had your hand up, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about AI and how we do it at my agency. So yes, we do use AI to do all the tedious tasks, and it helps us to go faster. But people wants to work with people, and like for me, it's all about creating relationship and bringing value. I'm also mentoring on a weekly basis founders and CEOs about personal branding, because also growing a community, it's a great way to launch a startup, especially if you're in social impact or if you're really solving a problem that a lot of people feel concerned about it. And I feel the more AI and robot we're going to get into our life, the more we're going to crave the humanness of us. So for me, it's like, I'm having a 5 years old that can do a lot of things, that has a great brain, a great memory that I don't really have. Like my memory is not that great, and I cannot process so much data. So I see it as a great partner. And yes, there is some marketers that are using AI and it doesn't look great. And I show that in my workshop. I bring example, and also to clients that have that kind of want to have that conversation. I tell them, this is what AI is doing right now, and it feels and it shows, and it will upset your customer. And, sometimes you have one shot. And if you're sending an email that sounds like, very random, and it sounds like it's been written by AI, then it's not a way to do marketing. It's just, like mass, noise. And we've got a lot of it, and people are fed up with it. I am.
Yeah,
Good
I look at
points.
I
Good
agree.
points.
I look at AI as a really strong tool. So like Emily, the person that should be using AI is you to make some of the things that you're doing for graphic design go smoother, but not the end user because they can't put all the pieces together. So, Stephanie, to your point too with writing, like I use AI for most of the writing that I do, and then I go back in and I edit all of that and make it my voice and tone, but it gives you a good starting point. So it certainly gets you like, hey, I have this laundry list of things I want to get in there. How do I get it from laundry list to actual, marketing content? Well, I can put it in AI and see what it cranks out, and chances are it's going to be okay. And then I can take that as a better starting point and refine it and work it from there. So, from that standpoint, AI does become very helpful and move things along. AI can be very helpful when we're looking at a lot of the automation. And even, some of the original AI before it got so, so complex was just having the variables in there to personalize what you're putting out there with automation. Um, so I'm gonna jump back into sharing if you guys don't mind, if it does decide it wants to share my screen. Let's see. There we go. I think we're back again. So again, I'm not going to dig too much into this. I have a whole presentation. I know we're already at time. If you guys need to drop, go ahead. But I'm going to kind of go through a little more because again, one of the things you need to think about is who are you talking to? And we talked about this a little bit before, but when you're talking AI and when you're talking, how do we connect to the audience? Who's the audience? Who are you connecting to? Who is it that's going to receive this information? And also, can you segment them out? So, really think about the different groups that you're talking to, whether it's Emily, from your standpoint, are you selling to the end user because you want to be selling directly to the families, or are you selling to the other, outlets that will be reselling this product? So again, it may be both. And that's fine too. Just make sure that it's defined because the benefits for a company that's reselling the mouth guards is completely different to the end user that's getting the mouth guards. The health benefits do not come to the company that's reselling it. They are not going to have their lives saved out on the field because they're not the athletes. What they're going to do is increase their bottom line because they're able to offer a product that's different than what's out there and they can cut through the clutter. So again, the messaging to that audience is different because that audience is different. The unique selling points that your product has, while they may still be the same, the benefits that they provide are different. So again, just thinking about who you're selling to and what benefits are provided by what you're selling. And again, when you're talking to them, speak their language. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, which is, don't put all this big, fancy stuff in there. Get to the meat of it, because to Emily's point, if you have 3 minutes that you can say something to them, and that's all that you have to be able to get it across, then make sure what you're saying, or 3 seconds or whatever it is, hit them over the head with something that's really important. So rather than saying, hey, we're gonna save you time. No, we're gonna save you 10 hours a week. We can actually definitively say there is an amount that we're gonna help you. We can say, yeah, we could save some lives, or we could say we are going to save, 5% of athletes that die from heat exhaustion are going to be there. The other thing too is while you're thinking about this, make sure, let me make sure I didn't skip ahead here. Yeah. So you want to make sure that when you're thinking about who these audiences are and what the benefits are, you don't write, again, it's another don't set it and forget it. Make sure you're trying to get feedback because you don't know. So, thinking about Sam, thinking about the teens, they may be today really interested in Bitcoin because Bitcoin's really popular and really, out there. But then next week, it may be another different form of it, or a different name for it, or a specific coin. So always being able to kind of get that feedback and hear what they're looking for makes you more likely to connect with them because you're able to talk their language. So, maybe in certain sports or whatever, Emily, for the mouth guards, there's different benefits that you bring in there, or there's different things they're looking for, or there's been an incident that's happened. And now, we want to circle around that to make sure that we can use that in our favor, not that we want to benefit from something bad happening, but we don't want it to happen again. So we want to make sure that, hey, you saw, and again, it's exactly how the concept was started, by a need. So when that need happens again, which it will, unfortunately, making sure that you're able to be reactive and proactive to it, kind of both, that you know what's out there. And you're going to hear this from different places. You're going to hear from, your customers. You're going to hear from prospects that didn't go with you. You're going to hear from your sales team if you have them. You're going to hear from the development team too. So again, this may not relate exactly to what everybody on this call is doing, but if you've got a development team that's building all these different products, and they're like, you know what, we're having really good success with this product. Well, that's what you should be selling, because that's something now that you have that works really well, that may not have been on your radar before, but you're hearing that from internal. So there's a lot of different places you can get the feedback, and making sure you're listening to it. And then, this really comes down to crafting the messaging. And part of that messaging, of course, includes how do you present it, the design. But again, and we've kind of, a lot of this stuff is somewhat repetitive because we're talking through it as we do it, we're building all this stuff. But make sure, you created that clear guideline for yourself when you're explaining it to prospects. Make sure it's really clear. Here's what we do. Here's what you're going to get out of it, so that in that 3 seconds that they're reading it, they're not trying to figure out, I don't even know what they're trying to sell me. They should know that. Be upfront. Make sure they understand the benefits that you're going to provide. And that doesn't necessarily be what are you going to sell me, but really more so, we said it before, what's in it for me. And again, if you can segment out your audience, make sure you're customizing what you're saying to each different audience, and you're highlighting the main things that they need to see. This could be emails, this could be social posts, this could be one-pagers, this could be, there's so many different ways you can get the message out there. And again, you need to make sure that that message is clear. And if you're going to have the message on multiple platforms, and this goes back to what Emily was talking about with branding, make sure it all matches up, so that you're not seeing and hearing a company one place and then completely different somewhere else. Because if you're not paying that much attention, which most of your customers and prospects are not, they don't need to. They'll see those colors, they'll see that logo, and that repetition will get to them. But if everything is different messaging and everything looks different and whatever, you're not going to get that repetition, because they're all going to be, one and dones, and that's it. Again, so this is kind of what I was just talking about, make sure what's in it for me. Make sure you're talking directly, this is exactly what we do. And again, if you can have case studies, if you can have some proof points in there, that's huge. Testimonials, people want to know, well, are other people using this? Does this work? What do people think? And the last part too, and this is one that I notice is missed all the time, is this call to action. So you get this great messaging, you put all this great information out there, and then it's like, well, what do I do now? There's nothing for me to do. I love everything you just said, but it falls flat. So make sure you've got that in there. Make sure there's what do you want them to do? And if you're building a website, I always say that every page could be that first page they come into and that last page they go to. So when they read that information and they like what they saw, what do you want them to do? And then you can add some incentives in there too. So it's not just, hey, click here to fill out a form and get more information, but click here and get 20% off your first month, or whatever it is. That now it's not only I know exactly what to do, and I have an incentive to do it. So, it's getting your message across, connecting with the audience, and really getting in there. And then, again, you don't just want it one and done. You need to make sure you stay on top of them. And again, a lot of this sounds complicated, and that's where the automation comes in. But it's not that one email and then, oh, they didn't get back to me, I guess that's the end of that. It's not that one phone call. It's not that one social post. It's not that one Google ad. It's repetition. Make sure you keep getting in there, and make sure that if new things are happening, you introduce that, so you're not always saying the same thing over and over again. The other part of it too is, you don't just want to say this to prospects and then when they become a customer, you're done. Part of marketing, part of messaging, part of all of this is customer retention. You've already got them. They're your best leads right there, because they've already agreed to your services. So make sure that you're always there for them. Again, a lot of this is really difficult and time consuming for early stage companies. And that's why we get into automation. So again, part of this too, before I even get in that, is making sure you know what's working and what's not. So make sure you can track it. Make sure you've got the proper tracking in there. What are your goals? What are you trying to get? Are you trying to get 10 sales a month? Are you able to track how many sales you're getting? Are you able to track where those sales came from? Was marketing involved? Did it have to hand off to a salesperson? Is there a certain message that works really well with a certain salesperson? Again, a lot of this too is looking at scaling. So you may be building for a team of 1 right now, but down the line, you may have 10, 15, or you may not. You may still be a team of 1, but have a lot more customers. So how do you continue to do this? Well, if you have the info coming in and know what's working, you cannot waste your time on the stuff that's not. And then, of course, make sure that you're testing, because You put one thing out there, you don't know if that's the best way to do it. If you put two things out there and one does better, well, guess what? That's the one that does better, and I can start doing more like that. Bottom part here is exactly what Sam was talking about, and really what we've all been saying. It's not about selling, it's about building the relationships. You know, you actually want to create genuine connections that are going to keep them coming back. You know, I can't impress that enough, and that's why AI can't take over, because AI cannot create those relationships. So you can have these automated messages, but you've got to get somebody involved there at some point. You've got to make sure that what you're saying is coming from you, is coming from your company, is coming from your company's brand identity, and is talking directly to them. It's not talking to a large group of them that maybe they fit into. The more you can segment it and the more you can talk directly to that audience, the more likely you're going to create that connection, because, hey, they give a shit about who I am. I wasn't going to say shit a whole bunch on this call, but I wound up doing it.
Emily started it.
So, you know, but the whole goal is connecting with, and when you're selling something, you're selling it to a person, whether it's a company, whether it's B2B, you're selling it to a person. Somebody has got to be on the other end of that. You're not talking to a company, because you can't talk to a company. You talk to a person at the company. And so you want to create that relationship with them. And again, even if they're buying it for a whole company, at the end of the day, they're thinking about what's in it for me. You know, why should I even bring this to my higher ups? Why should I tell my company that this is a good idea? What's in it for me? And of course, what's in it for them is hopefully something that's good for the company is going to be beneficial for them. So last part of this, and again, hop in at any time. I want to make this really interactive, but I do want to get through a lot of this stuff, and I know we are past time, is the automation, because this is the big part. You know, everything that we talked about before is what I call the foundation. So now we've built this foundation. We know who we're talking to. We know what we need to say to them. We know the benefits that we brought. We know how to measure it. How do we get all of that out there? You know, especially if we are a entrepreneur of one, or we're a very small team. Even if we have a sales team that we're paying, we don't want to be paying them to be constantly making these emails and phone calls and whatever else it is, because, you know, say we've got a 10%, you know, conversion rate. Well, and they're spending 90% of their time doing something that's not going to be beneficial. How do we cut down on that and set them up for success? And again, that's really where automation comes in. It saves that time. That's huge. You know, when we talk to startups, the number one thing they always tell us they need is money. And that's true, but what they really need is time. And they need, and you tell most founders will say, if I could only multiply myself, you know, if I could clone myself and have 3 of me, I could get so much more done. That's what automation does, because chances are 50, 60% of what you're doing as a founder is repetitive, and, you know, just the stuff that the grunt work that needs to get done. If you can leverage automation for a lot of that stuff, you're going to save yourself time, and you're going to allow yourself to focus on what really matters. You know, you're also going to make sure that, am I going to remember to send this message out to these guys? Am I going to remind them about this appointment? Go ahead, Emily.
So my question is, when you say automation, that could be many things. Like, I know there's like HubSpot is like a whole platform you can buy that has like funnel, top of the funnel, blah, 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 blah. When you say automation, are you referring to just whatever level, that sophisticated level, or at a more simple level where someone hires you and you help them know that something's going out once a week? I just want to clear up what you mean by automation.
Both. I mean, automation is anything that you can hand off to potentially a machine and not have to pay somebody to do, hand off to a system that can do it. So, you know, and I'll get into a little bit more of what I'm talking about on the next slide. Really, this is why you would want to do automation. So again, it allows you to be consistent with your messaging, because you've already preset it. You can have that message always going out, that image always going out. You're allowed to scale. And when we're talking about who we're actually automating for, it's not just automating for your audience. It's not just automating for your prospects. It's automating for your existing customers. It's automating for your internal team. It's automating for your partners. And that's really kind of where we get it here, where, you know, so this is, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Emily, there is a software called Salesforce.
Yeah.
And I think what Jeffrey's trying to get at is what we call customer relations management, or CRM.
Yes.
Is the would be the acronym. And if you, for example, Salesforce, I think you mentioned HubSpot.
Yeah.
These things, especially for us startup people, are gold. because you can literally sit down, let's just say in a 5-day week, and you
Yeah.
only need to take maybe even an hour a day. And if you've set it up properly, you can just sit down and put in the information because you've already preset it to do things like track outbound emails, outbound phone calls, inbound phone calls, different campaigns you may have. You might even be able to put the birth dates of some of your existing clients, for example, prospects, so on and so forth. But I think you're talking about CRM, right, Jeffrey?
Well, I'm
Customer
talking about a bunch
relationship
of different things.
management.
That's what I was saying before. So yes, the CRM would be part of this, especially if you're talking to your customers or your prospects. And again, what I'm talking about here is really, how you would use the platform is not necessarily getting there yet. We will get to what tools come in, but again, here's the things you could do. So again, when you're talking to your customers, and Sam, you hit on some of these before, making sure that your outgoing messages are one, personalized, but two, are going out in a timely fashion and going out frequently so that you stay top of mind. You could use it for chatbots. Again, the timely follow-ups is just making sure if they reach out to you, you're getting back to them. Again, here's some of the other things you could do with internally with your coworkers, making sure task assignments are updated regularly. There's tools like Monday or tools like Basecamp that, again, automation where I say, hey, in a week, remind this person, this person, and this person. It can be your own team. It can be your partners. You can put a lot of things in there. Again, another good tool, not necessarily a CRM system, but one that can do automation and help you with task management. Help you make sure, again, it's the lowest level of automation is when you set up a meeting for somebody and set them an invite and say, hey, 10 minutes before this meeting, that's my default setting. Make sure a pop-up comes up to remind them of the meeting. That's automation right there. If that wasn't there, people wouldn't show up for your meetings. You'd have to email them all and remind them. So everybody already is using some form of automation. It's just kind of taking that to the next level. Again, and I think Stephanie had mentioned this before she dropped about the data collection. But again, if you're trying to collect a lot of that data to do all your tracking and you want to go out there and go to all the different platforms, that's a pain. If you can find a system that's going to pull all that in and create an automated dashboard. I use a platform that Google owns called Looker Studio a lot to share just all the insights and the reporting for my customers. I don't go in there and create those dashboards every single time. I've built the system that it can pull all that information from different sources and automate that task, which is a huge time saver for me because otherwise every month I got to go out and pull all the different data and plug it all in there. I don't do any of that anymore because the system can do it. Again, when you're talking to your partners, you can use Slack as another one right there. If you've got internal or external, you can set it to remind them at certain parts. You can pull it together, every month. Here's what I was just talking about with reporting. You can share that, not having to do anything. All the reports are automatically set up. So again, it's really CRM is a big part of it. And here, when we look at the tools, CRM is the first one we have on there, looking at Salesforce and HubSpot, the two that you guys talked about. Those are great tools to use for that customer outreach. Are they the only ones? No. But, looking at that CRM platform, that's where you're going to be able to collect all the information about your leads, all the information about your customers, and make sure that you're sharing that back out properly. But then again, we talked about Slack and Microsoft Teams to collaborate internally, or even when you're doing your external outreach, using a MailChimp or a Klaviyo, one of those automated email platforms where, again, it still goes back to that messaging that you created. But instead of creating one email and saying, well, I hope this works, you create a series of 7 of them all along your same messaging platform and send them out once a week until they respond back. You could go there and send each message out yourself. It's going to take you a ton of time, or you automate the whole process.
Jeffrey, can I jump in really quickly?
Yeah, because I just got to the end. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Real quick story. Got a client in Frederick. I used to work at a co-work Frederick. And I don't know if you guys, we're all in Maryland, so I know everybody knows where Frederick is. However, I sold the guy back in 2015 a term life insurance policy. I'm life and annuities and health insurance license. Sold him $1 million policy very inexpensively. Could have sold him way more expensive policies, but he couldn't believe I spent 3 hours with him and basically made no commission, right? So he calls me a few months later and he goes, hey, dude, I've got some employees. I need you to do my health insurance for me, We got in a fight. I said, I don't do that. I don't do health insurance. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. You know, I'll refer you. He goes, if you don't do this, then I'm gonna, you know, put it out there in the public domain that you suck. And I'm like, what? No, no, I'll do it, right? So, bottom line, end of story. What has happened now? He's grown his company to not just a location in Frederick, but he's got another location in Delaware. He's grown from himself to now over 30 employees. He offers them every kind of benefit you can imagine under the sun. And it was in October, I called DoorDash. I said, hey, I need you guys to bring Chipotle to these guys, right? So DoorDash delivers. Of course, I'm tracking it on the app. Chipotle gets there. I call in to the GM, and I'm like, so, you know, Ellen, did it get there? And she's like, you sent this? I go, yeah. But here's the thing. I've maintained that relationship now. I don't do math very well, but since 2015, when this guy began his company, right before he ever had an employee. Now here we are, 30 employees later, and all I did was send DoorDash, you know, just for the heck of it, for lunch to his internal staff. They keep referring business to us because I also have an insurance firm. They won't talk to anyone else about anything to do with their insurance. Why? Because we don't forget them. Everybody has to eat, right? And they're kind of like, no, don't worry about it. Oh, I also sent them Halloween candy, just a huge thing of Halloween candy. And I had a local courier do that for us, and I just sent it in. Now I have a courier company, so I was like, go bring them some candy. And again, when the GM showed up that day, she's like, who sent this? They said, some guy named Sam. She calls me up. She goes, what are you doing? These people aren't going to want to work, right? So my point in sharing that, again, it really doesn't matter what we do at all. AI, Emily, to your point and your concern, how can AI ever do that? Ever, right?
Right.
And I think to Jeffrey's point, as it relates to automation and simplifying things, absolutely. But when we do those extra little things, like a birthday card,
It's
or
the human element. It's the human element.
And
exactly,
it's leveraging technology to be able to maximize that. So you just right there, birthday card. How are you going to remember every customer's birthday to send it? You're not. Automation.
no,
You put in the system. This is so and so's birthday card. If it's digital, automatically send it. If you can send it through a system, automatically do it because it's such a great personal touch. And if you can take the personal part out of it to get it set up, or at least make sure that you're using something to remind you. The DoorDash is a great thing too, to remind you, hey, I haven't reached out to this customer in 3 months. Let's do something nice for them and let's do something different. So that's kind of looking at what sets you apart, looking at, you know, what's in it for them. Well, if I work with Sam, I might get Chipotle. I mean, that's simple enough, you know, and so I could call these other companies, but they're not going to send me lunch for no reason. So I'm going to call Sam because there's something in it for me, you know, the office manager who's not going to benefit otherwise, except this is one thing that I would have had to do for my company, and now Sam's doing it. Great.
and Jeffrey,
Well,
and all,
entrepreneurs,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say hello, entrepreneurs.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is this is all fabulous. This is good stuff. I want to point out that
yeah,
we went well past the hour. And
okay,
Sam, you're making a fantastic point, as it was Emily, about it is simply personal relationships. How do you get from not a personal relationship to one of those? How do you get from never met him before in my life to long-term relationship? So yes, Jeff, that was a fantastic presentation. I mean, you nailed the basics. And if I recall correctly, it's rocket science basics that'll get you through that, through the stratosphere to outer space. Nothing else will get you there. If you don't do your rocket science basics, you're dead before you get out of the air.
Hmm.
So again, this has been fabulous. Those basics have brought it home to me again. I spotted some holes in my own activities now, just looking at your slides and listening to what you had to say. And then the feedback from Emily and Sam, fabulous stuff. You're spot on. Yes, AI sucks today. It'll just be next decade's annoyance. Just like last, voicemail was fabulous in the 80s. Now it's just decades annoyance and so forth, right? So let's do it. Let's time marches on. Let's wrap this up. Let's get out there and build some customer relationships. Fair
Awesome.
enough?
Thank you so much, guys. I have really enjoyed, this is my second time and it's a pleasure. I really enjoy meeting all of you.
Well, thank you, Emily.
Yep. And kudos to
Yeah,
Jeffrey
no,
for
we
bringing that to us.
you guys on. I'm glad this was a good interactive conversation rather than just a talking head, which is what I was hoping this was going to be. So appreciate you guys getting so involved in it. And I mean, we went half hour past. So obviously this was a great conversation. We're hopefully going to be doing, well, we are going to be doing more of these, and we're going to hopefully be doing other events potentially in person. We've got Accelerator coming up. Spread the word, keep an eye on whatever we're putting out via our email or LinkedIn, because there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. And if you or anybody needs help with some of the things that we do, please feel free to reach out. Emily, you and I should touch base again soon anyway.
I would love to catch up with you.
Sounds great. And Sam, it was great meeting you today.
And so
You
Sam,
too,
you're
Jeffrey.
you're
Thank
invited
you.
to apply for our accelerator. It's no charge to you. Emily, same with that thermal pack. Those guys are invited with you to apply to our accelerator, no charge.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay.
Look it
Yeah.
up on our webpage. Go to startupgrind.com/Maryland. It's the first headline. And then the first link, just one paragraph down, it takes you straight to information about the accelerator.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, very well done, everybody. This has been one of the most vigorous, exciting groups I've been a part of in Startup Grind for a while. And I learned
Thank
a lot
you.
today.
Thanks,
Hey,
everybody.
Patrick, what's the accelerator website or email?
On the web, go to startupgrind.com/Maryland.
Okay. Thanks.
Until next time.
Well, thanks.
Yes.
Keep an eye out in
Thank
your
you,
email.
everyone. Have a great weekend.
Stay warm.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jeffrey.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Got it. Thank you, guys. Take care.